Howdy Rock Buds, it's Papa. Hope you guys are doing well. Did you notice that we're still at the Minimalist Cottage here? Yeah, Grammy and I looked all over North Georgia for a good piece of property. And you know what? We couldn't find one that matched the beauty of this place right here for the right price. So we're going to stay right here and fix all this up. And we're going to get us a Dodge ProMaster van and make it into a camping mansion. Anyway, today's topic is the geology of Florida. I promised my rock buddy Tony of the River that I would do one on Florida, so here it is. We're going to talk about the different kinds of rock layers in Florida, their importance, and then we're going to put it all together by talking about the geologic history of Florida. So if you like this video and it's useful, please subscribe. And thank you so much to all those who subscribe. So here we go, the geology of Florida. Okay, let's go to Rock D and have a look at the geology of the wonderful state of Florida. Here we go, and there's some really nice colors that we'll investigate soon. But first I thought we'd look at the elevation above sea level of different parts of the state. In the western panhandle of Florida, we have about 300 feet above sea level plus or minus. Around Tallahassee, 200 feet plus or minus. Around Gainesville, Florida, about 150 feet above sea level plus or minus. And everything south of Gainesville on the peninsula is less than 150 feet above sea level. Compare that to Atlanta, Georgia, which is around 1,000 feet above sea level. That'll give you kind of an elevational perspective. So on this geology map, I see some pretty reddish pinkish colors. Let's look into those because they're extremely important. These pinkish colors represent limestone that outcrops at the surface of the ground. The darker pink further south is the Ocala limestone, and up further north, the lighter pink is the Suwannee limestone. So Rock Buds, let's have a look at these limestones. The Ocala and the Suwannee limestones look similar to each other to me, and here's some pictures of them for your viewing enjoyment. Both of these limestones are young, immature limestones deposited fairly recently in geologic time, so you can see a lot of the shell creatures in there that make them up. Here's some 500 million year old limestone for comparison. You can't see any shell creatures in it. The white lines are calcium carbonate streaks, but both kinds of limestone will fizz in HCl solution. The Ocala limestone was deposited first about 35 million years ago, and then came the Suwannee limestone, which was deposited on top of it about 30 million years ago. That's pretty young geologically speaking. Hey guys, a little later on in this video we'll talk about what was going on in the world when these limestones and other sediments were deposited. First, we need to talk about what makes these limestone formations, which actually do underlie the whole state, so very important and critical to the life of all Floridians. The calcium carbonate that limestone is made out of is a base, just like baking soda is a base when we're talking about acid base. And rainwater is a weak acid, so when it rains on these limestone formations, the acid in the rainwater eats and dissolves a lot of the limestone, creating tremendous underground caves and also sinkholes that come to the surface. Hey Rock Buds, here's a little video bite that tells about how the water cycle fills up these limestone caves and sinkholes.
Evaporation causes water to collect in the atmosphere that eventually falls from the skies in the form of rain or snow and collects in the four major reservoirs: oceans, polar ice caps, groundwater, and surface water. Groundwater flows through voids in the rocks and sediments to surface water bodies large, such as springs, rivers, lakes, or oceans.
Rainwater fills up these caves and cavities and sinkholes, providing absolutely billions upon billions of gallons of fresh water for the people of Florida to drink. And the whole system is called the Floridian Aquifer, which you guys probably know about. Here's some video hunks from the state of Florida that show some of these springs and underground passages that make up the Floridian Aquifer. It's all very beautiful. Okay guys, so now let's look at some of the other geologic formations in Florida. Just a little south of the Tallahassee area, we have the St. Mark's Formation, deposited about 20 million years ago, and that is sandy limestone. Down around the Gainesville area, you've got the Coosa-Watchie Formation of the Hawthorne Group. And it is made mostly of clayey sand with phosphates included. Phosphate mining provides a huge revenue source in central Florida along the Peace River. The area in this picture is called the Bone Valley. It's so rich in phosphates. Phosphates form by precipitation in shallow ocean basins, and biochemical processes are involved in phosphate formation. Phosphates are a major component of fertilizers. A whole bunch of Florida, especially in the southern part, is covered by these what they call undifferentiated sediments, and the main thing to remember is that these sediments are really young geologically, formed in about the past 2 or 3 million years during the Pleistocene Ice Age. Okay, rock buds, let's try to come up with a geologic history of Florida that includes a lot of these rocks and sediments that we've been looking at. Florida's geologic history begins with the Alleghanian Orogeny and the formation of the supercontinent Pangaea. Can you see in this picture, as Pangaea comes together, the green state of Florida? Yes, it was part of Africa to begin with. And thus Pangaea, the last supercontinent we've had, was born. Then around 150 million years ago, Pangaea began to break up. And lo and behold, Florida did not go with Africa when it separated from North America. It stayed. These original Africa rocks became the basement rocks underlying all of Florida, and they're about 3 miles deep below the surface. Hey rock buds, now that we got the big picture beginning with Pangaea's rifting, let's go into a little bit more detail, but not too much. Okay, so we start off during the Cretaceous period, 150 to 65 million years ago. And we've just seen that that was the time when Pangaea was breaking up. And the basement rock of Florida, which came from Africa originally, stayed in North America. And sea level was rising during this period. Hey rock buds, 2 reasons why the North American continent edge began to sink after Pangaea broke apart. The first one is that when Pangaea was breaking apart, there was tremendous heat underneath it that was bulging up and pushing it up. Once Pangaea broke up and that heat and pressure was released, the continent sunk back down, and the oceans rose over the edge of it. Another reason is that during the Cretaceous time, the glaciers had melted, and that put a whole lot of ocean water into the oceans that also raised sea level. When the ocean rises up on the land, the beaches migrate uphill, leaving a trail, a layer of sand behind them. Then the mud from the intracoastal waterways does the same thing, covering the layer of sand. And finally, a thick layer of limey mud covers everything. And in Florida, that super thick layer of limey mud became the Ocala limestone and the Sewanee limestone. Most of this huge mass of limestone was accumulated during the Paleogene period, which goes from about 65 million years ago, which is the end of Cretaceous, to about 25 million years ago. Then came the Neogene period, which lasted from about 25 million years ago to about 2.5 million years ago. During the Neogene, the glaciers began to form, the sea level went down, and sandy land sediments began to cover over both the Ocala and the Sewanee limestones. And those land sediments that covered the limestone are the ones we talked about earlier. The St. Mark's Formation, which was sandy limestone. Then came the Coosawhatchee Formation of the Hawthorne Group, which was, there was a lot of clay and sand in that, and also the massive phosphate deposits that we talked about earlier. Then came the Pleistocene period, which is ice ages. The fluctuations of the ice ages caused sea level to rise and fall, which left sandy deposits of a young age across much of Florida, especially the southern part. The final act in our geologic odyssey of Florida was erosion. And after this erosion took place, generally speaking, the older sediments were exposed further north and the youngest sediments were exposed further south. You can get a kind of a feel for that with this image here. Where the orange layer is the sand beaches, the thin bluish layers are the mud. The pink layer is the Ocala and Sewanee limestone, and the yellowish layer on top is these sandy deposits that came on top. Okay, most excellent rock buddies. That's my take on the geologic history of Florida. Hope you liked it. If so, please subscribe. And this is your Rock Papa saying happy rock hunting to all my rock buddies. Papa out.